You know the Statue of Liberty, right? Of course you do. She's an icon, a landmark, a symbol of America. But the story we all think we know, that she was this simple, elegant gift from France, that's really just scratching the surface. The real story? Oh, it's a nail-biting saga of artistic vision, engineering genius, financial collapse, and a last-minute rescue that turned a monument into a legend.
So let's start with that question. Was she really just a straightforward gift, a friendly gesture from one republic to another to celebrate independence? Well, the short answer is nope, not even close. The reality is way more complex and, honestly, a whole lot more interesting.
Because you see, this statue wasn't just given, it was earned. It was the product of this massive transatlantic crowdfunding campaign that nearly failed. And its triumph is a story about the power of ordinary people fighting for an extraordinary idea.
All right, so let's get into the origin story because the spark for this whole idea, it's probably not what you think. To really understand Lady Liberty, we have to go back to a pretty specific moment, the end of the American Civil War.
So get this, the whole idea pops up in 1865, and it's not about celebrating 1776, the American Revolution. It was meant to honor the Union's victory and, this is the crucial part, the abolition of slavery. The man behind it was Edouard de la Boulaye, a fierce French abolitionist. He saw America's survival through the Civil War as a huge win for freedom everywhere. That's the key to her original identity. That broken shackle and chain at her feet that she's stepping away from, that's not just decoration. It was the whole point.
And this is where her story gets really fascinating. This shift in meaning is just so central to her story. The statue was conceived to commemorate the end of slavery, but it would later be totally reborn in the public's mind as the Mother of Exiles, a welcoming beacon for immigrants.
Okay, so having a grand idea is one thing, but turning it into a 305-foot, 225-ton copper and iron giant? Well, that was a whole different ballgame.
Three brilliant French minds made this happen. Bartholdi was the artist, the sculptor with this grand vision for a classical figure of libertas. Viollet Leduc was the first engineer. He chose the lightweight copper skin. But after his sudden death, a new engineer stepped in, a man named Gustave Eiffel. Yes, that Eiffel.
Eiffel's design was just revolutionary. He knew a rigid statue that big would eventually crack under its own weight, so he basically engineered it like an early skyscraper. There's a massive iron pylon inside that bears all the weight, while the thin copper skin, and get this, it's only about the thickness of 2 pennies, hangs from it like a curtain. This curtain wall design, connected by these flexible saddles, lets her sway in the wind and allows the metal to expand in the summer heat without breaking. It was absolutely brilliant. And just look at these numbers. The sheer scale of what they were trying to do was immense. We're talking about a total height of over 300 feet and a weight of more than 200 tons. Just imagine trying to coordinate that construction, hand-hammering every single piece of copper in one workshop, building the massive iron skeleton in another, and then hoping it would all fit together perfectly thousands of miles away.
So the statue was built in Paris and presented to the American ambassador. The French had done their part. Everything's great, right? Wrong. Over on the American side of the Atlantic, the whole project was about to die.
The deal was simple. France pays for the statue, America pays for the pedestal. Easy enough, right? But fundraising in the US was a total disaster. You had an economic depression, a ton of public criticism, political squabbling. The money just wasn't there. So the statue arrives in crates in New York Harbor, but there was literally nowhere to put her.
By 1885, work on the pedestal had completely stopped. They were short $100,000. I mean, that was a massive, massive sum back then. The project was right on the brink of failure. In fact, other cities like Boston and Philadelphia even offered to pay for the pedestal if the statue were moved to them. It was a national embarrassment.
But just when all hope seemed lost, the project found an unlikely champion in one of America's most powerful and innovative figures.
Joseph Pulitzer, the publisher of the New York World newspaper, launched one of the most brilliant fundraising campaigns in history. He used his front page to shame the rich for not donating and to champion the statue as a project for the common person. And he made this radical promise. He would print the name of every single person who donated, no matter how small the amount. And the response? It was absolutely overwhelming. In just 5 months, over 120,000 people donated. And get this, a staggering 80% of the money came from donations of less than $1. This was no longer a gift from elites. It became the people statue, paid for with pennies, nickels, and dimes. And Pulitzer didn't just take the money, he published the notes that came with the donations. And they're incredibly moving. He printed a note from a young girl alone in the world who sent 60 cents, calling it the result of self-denial.
Another note came from a group of children who mailed in $1, explaining it was the money we saved to go to the circus with. It was these little acts of generosity from ordinary Americans that saved the entire project and finally got that pedestal built.
So the pedestal gets built. The statue's finally dedicated on October 28, 1886. But her story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Her most powerful transformation was actually yet to come.
As the years went by, the statue's role really evolved. She was dedicated in 1886, sure, but it was a poem, added 17 years later, that would fundamentally change her meaning for millions. And her history just kept going, through wartime damage, major renovations, and constant debate over what she truly represents.
These are the words of Emma Lazarus's poem, The New Colossus. When this plaque was finally attached to the pedestal in 1903, it gave the statue a whole new voice. As waves of immigrants sailed past her into New York Harbor, she wasn't just a monument to some abstract idea anymore. She became the mother of exiles, a personal, profound symbol of hope and welcome.
So, when you think about it, the Statue of Liberty we know today wasn't simply given. She was earned through incredible ingenuity, a whole lot of struggle, and the collective will of ordinary people. She began as a monument to the end of slavery and was reborn as a promise to immigrants. Her story is one of constant reinvention. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. After all this history, all these changes, what does her torch enlighten for us today?